My entire family laughed at me at my own mother's birthday dinner, saying I couldn't even afford rent, but they had no idea that the hotel manager would soon call me owner. Let me tell you how everything fell apart for them, and how everything changed for me. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name is Mara Ellison. I'm the quiet one in my family, the one everyone forgets until they need someone to blame. I'm in my late 20s, and at that moment in my life, I was barely holding things together. My breakup with my ex had drained me emotionally and financially. My own family, who should have supported me, had slowly pushed me aside, treating me like some burden they were tired of carrying. But I still showed up to my mother's birthday dinner. I told myself it was the right thing to do, even though my heart already knew how the night would go. The restaurant was warm and loud, filled with laughter, just not mine. My siblings, Dorian, Callista, and Wyatt, sat together like they were royalty. They always acted that way. As soon as I sat down, Dorian smirked at me like he'd been waiting. "Well, look who made it," he said loudly. "Mara, did you manage to pay your rent this month, or should we pass around a donation box?" The table erupted in laughter. Even some distant relatives chuckled awkwardly, like they didn't want to be rude but also didn't want to defend me. My throat tightened, but I kept my face unreadable. I learned long ago not to let them see me cry. Callista leaned toward Wyatt, whispering loudly on purpose, "She's basically the family charity case at this point." Wyatt added, "She's lucky we even invited her." Everyone laughed again. But the worst part? My mother sat there silently, staring at her hands. She didn't defend me. She didn't correct them. Her silence cut deeper than their words. Then Dorian, always needing to be the center of attention, took it further. "You guys know she almost got evicted last month, right?" he announced, raising his glass like he was giving a toast. Imagine being almost 30 and still struggling like that. More laughter. Someone said, "That's embarrassing." Another whispered, "She should have made better life choices." I heard everything. My face felt hot, but I stayed calm. I kept my hands on my lap so no one would see them shake. I refused to give them the satisfaction. Instead, I breathed slowly and stared at the lit candle on my mother's birthday cake. I focused on the flame and blocked out the noise. I didn't fight back. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just sat there, silent, but inside me, something shifted. That humiliation, that moment where they exposed me just to laugh, it lit something in me. A spark. A fuse. I didn't know it then, but that dinner would be the last day they'd ever look down on me. Because soon, the girl they mocked for not paying rent would own something far bigger than a home. She'd own the place they'd one day walk into, begging. This was the beginning of their downfall, and my rise. Growing up, I always knew I was treated differently from my siblings, but I never understood why. Dorian, Callista, and Wyatt were the ones everyone praised. They were the talented ones, the smart ones, the children my relatives loved showing off. I was just there, quiet, helpful, and easy to forget. Whenever something went wrong in the house, the blame usually fell on me, even when I had nothing to do with it. I learned early that speaking up didn't matter. No one listened. When my dad passed away, everything became worse. He left behind a small inheritance, and for a moment, I thought maybe things would be fair for once. But my siblings convinced me to sign papers I didn't fully understand. They said it was to make settling things easier, and because I trusted them, I agreed. Later, I found out those papers gave up my share of the inheritance. They took everything. No one apologized. No one even explained. They acted like it was normal. After that, I worked anywhere I could, cleaning, waiting tables, stocking shelves. Sometimes I worked 2 or 3 jobs at once. Meanwhile, Dorian bought a new car, Callista traveled with friends, and Wyatt lived comfortably without worrying about bills. When relatives talked about my siblings' lives, they used words like successful and promising. When they talked about me, they just asked, "How many jobs is she working now?" The worst betrayal came years later. I was engaged to Rhett, a man I thought I would build a future with. He was charming, gentle, and someone I truly trusted. But behind my back, he grew close to Callista. Rumors started, and when I confronted him, he didn't deny it. He had been cheating with my own sister. When I told my family, they shrugged it off. My mother said, "It was just a mistake." Dorian said, "You're too sensitive." They didn't comfort me. They didn't care. They acted like losing Rhett was my fault. I felt alone, like I didn't belong anywhere, but I kept going. I worked, saved, and tried to rebuild myself quietly. I told myself that someday I would find peace, even if no one in my family believed I deserved it. So when my siblings mocked me at the birthday dinner, it wasn't just about that night. Their laughter opened every old wound I had worked so hard to close: my stolen inheritance, their constant favoritism, the betrayal with Rhett, all the lies they expected me to swallow. Sitting there, listening to everyone laugh at my pain, something inside me finally snapped. I realized I didn't need to stay, and I didn't owe them anything. Not my time, not my love, not my silence. That night pushed me to walk away from everything and everyone who treated me like I was nothing. I didn't know what my future held, but I knew one thing for sure: I was done letting them break me. After the birthday dinner, I threw myself into work because it was the only place where I felt useful. I worked part-time at a small coffee shop downtown. The pay wasn't great, but it kept me afloat. Most days, I opened the shop before sunrise and closed it when the streets were already dark. I was tired all the time, but I showed up every day, smiled at customers, and tried my best to stay positive. One of our regular customers was an older man named Mr. Halden Pierce. He came in almost every morning, always ordering the same thing: black coffee, no sugar. He wasn't the type who talked much, but he observed everything. One morning, when the rush was heavier than usual and I was running around trying to keep up, he watched me with a small smile. After things calmed down, he spoke to me for the first time. "You handle pressure well," he said quietly. "Not many people your age can do that." I just laughed softly and told him I was used to it. I didn't expect anything more from the conversation. But the next day, he asked if I had ever thought about working somewhere with more stability. I told him I didn't have many options and wasn't qualified for much. He shook his head like he disagreed. "I own a small hotel," he said. "The Redwood Crest. It's old, but it has history. I need someone reliable at the front desk. Someone who cares about their work. You remind me of someone I used to trust." I didn't know what to say. No one had ever offered me an opportunity like that. He asked me to think about it and gave me the address. That night, I sat on my small couch, staring at the paper. I was nervous. I worried I would disappoint him or mess something up. But I also knew I couldn't stay stuck in the same place forever. The next morning, I visited the hotel. It wasn't grand, but it had a warm, old-fashioned charm. The wooden sign outside looked worn but beautiful, like it held stories from decades ago. Inside, the lobby felt quiet and welcoming. I met Halden there, and he walked me through the front desk area. He explained the duties slowly and clearly: greeting guests, checking them in, answering questions, keeping things organized. Nothing too complicated. But he also said something that surprised me. "More than skill," he said, "I need honesty. Hard workers are rare. You're one." His trust meant more to me than he knew. I accepted the job right away. At first, I moved carefully, afraid to make mistakes. But Halden was patient. Day by day, he taught me everything about running the place: how to handle reservations, manage small crises, and talk to guests so they felt at home. He wasn't just a boss, he was a guide, someone who actually believed I was capable. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had a real chance to build something. Little did I know this simple job would become the start of a completely new future. As I worked at the front desk, I grew closer to Mr. Halden Pierce. He wasn't the type to talk about his personal life, but one quiet afternoon, he asked me to sit with him in his office. The room smelled faintly of old books and polished wood. I felt nervous. I wasn't used to being invited into spaces like this, but I sat down anyway. Halden looked at me with a serious expression. "Mara," he began, "I haven't said much about my life, but there's something you should know. I don't have children. I've spent years running this hotel, and I wanted someone honest and capable to continue it after me. Someone who cares about people and work as much as I do." I blinked, unsure what to say. The words felt strange. Most people in my life had never trusted me like this. Most had doubted me, laughed at me, or ignored me. And yet here was Halden, speaking as if I could be trusted with something far bigger than myself. He leaned forward. "I've been watching you. You show patience, dedication, and integrity. Those qualities are rare. I'm not well. I've been diagnosed with something serious, and I won't be around much longer. I want you to have the chance to grow here, not just at the front desk, but to eventually manage the hotel. To make it your own." My heart skipped. I hadn't expected anything like this. No one had ever offered me a future where I could actually belong, where my hard work mattered. I felt tears prick my eyes, but I held them back. I wanted to believe him, but it felt almost unreal. "Why me?" I finally whispered. "I'm just me." Halden smiled gently. "Because I see who you are, Mara. Most people look at your past or your circumstances and decide what they think you deserve. I don't. I see your effort, your character, your heart. That's what matters here." I felt a warmth spread through me, a feeling I hadn't had in years. Someone finally believed in me, not because of my family, my mistakes, or what others said, but because of who I truly was. For the first time, I felt valued, capable, and trusted. I'll do it," I said softly. "I'll give my all. I won't let you down." Halden nodded, a small smile on his face. "I know you won't. You have more potential than you realize, Mara. Pour yourself into this hotel, and it will repay you in ways you can't imagine." As I left his office that day, I felt something shift inside me. I had never felt this kind of hope. I had spent so long being ignored, doubted, and humiliated. Now, I had a chance to build something real, something that belonged to me. I promised myself I would work harder than ever, not just for the hotel, but for myself, to prove that I was worth every bit of trust Halden had given me. For the first time, I felt like I finally had a future. By now, I had settled into my work at the hotel. I learned every little detail, from taking reservations to helping guests feel welcome. I enjoyed it quietly, proud of the effort I was putting in, but I never mentioned much to my family. I knew how they liked to twist things and put me down. It wasn't long before Dorian, Callista, and Wyatt caught wind of where I worked. They laughed when they heard hotel and immediately assumed I was just cleaning floors or washing dishes. They told everyone who would listen that I was barely making money, that I was probably homeless, and that I had no real future. Invitations to family events stopped coming. Calls and messages went unanswered. They wanted nothing to do with me, except to spread rumors and make me feel small. I kept my distance, letting them talk while I focused on learning everything I could at the hotel. Halden had become a mentor to me, and I was determined to do my best. I started handling more responsibilities and slowly gained confidence. Each day, I felt stronger and more capable, even as my family continued their gossip. Months passed, and one day I received news that Halden had quietly passed away. I felt a heavy sadness. He had believed in me when no one else did, and I wanted to honor him by being the best I could be. I attended his small funeral, surrounded by a few close friends and loyal staff. There were no grand displays, just the quiet respect he had always shown to everyone around him. After the service, the hotel lawyer approached me and handed over a sealed envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were documents stating that Halden had legally transferred full ownership of the Redwood Crest to me. I read the words over and over, trying to make sense of it. The quiet hotel where I had worked so hard, where I had given every ounce of effort, was now officially mine. I couldn't believe it. Shocked, overwhelmed, and humbled all at once, I sat in the office, letting the weight of the moment sink in. I remembered all the years of struggle, the family who doubted me, the ex who betrayed me, the jobs that barely paid, and all the moments I had been laughed at or ignored. And now, here I was, trusted with something so important, something I had never imagined I could achieve. Tears came to my eyes, but they were different now. They were not from shame or pain, but from pride and gratitude. Halden had seen my worth when nobody else did. He had believed in me, and because of that belief, I had a chance to build a life I could be proud of. For the first time in my life, I felt like I truly belonged somewhere, like my efforts mattered, and like the future was finally mine to shape. I knew everything was about to change, and this time it would be on my terms. After Halden left me the hotel, I knew my work had just begun. The redwood crest was beautiful in its own way, but it needed serious care. The paint was faded, carpets worn, and many of the rooms felt outdated. I used the savings Halden had left behind to start renovations. Every dollar was carefully spent. I wanted the hotel to feel welcoming, comfortable, and professional, a place people would remember. I began by hiring a few loyal workers I trusted, people who believed in hard work and honesty. Together, we cleaned every corner, fixed broken furniture, polished floors, and repainted walls. I studied how to run the hotel efficiently, how to schedule staff, manage bookings, handle complaints, and keep finances in order. Some days were exhausting, but seeing progress made it all worth it. I felt proud of every small improvement. Slowly, the effort paid off. Guests began to notice. Business travelers liked the quiet, professional atmosphere, and tourists loved the charm of the old building combined with the modern touches we had added. People started returning, telling their friends about the hotel. Each positive comment made me feel more confident. I was learning that running a hotel was not just about cleaning rooms or taking reservations, it was about creating an experience, about caring for people and their comfort. As the months passed, I noticed something else changing in myself. I felt stronger, more independent, and more capable than I ever had before. I was no longer the quiet, overlooked woman my family had mocked. I was making decisions, solving problems, and building something from the ground up. Every challenge, from a double booking to a broken heater, became a chance to learn and grow. I discovered that I could handle more than I had ever imagined. Word about the redwood crest began to spread around town. Slowly, whispers started, the hotel's new owner is a smart woman. She runs the place so well, it feels like home. I heard she transformed the hotel entirely. It felt strange and wonderful to hear people speak about me like that. I had worked hard for years, often unnoticed, and now, finally, my effort was being recognized. I realized I was no longer just surviving. I was thriving. Each guest who smiled as they checked in, each positive review, and each day I walked through the lobby with my head held high reminded me that I had built something meaningful. I had earned respect through my own dedication and hard work. The Redwood Crest was more than a hotel now. It was my achievement, a place where my vision and effort showed. And through it, I learned that I was capable of so much more than I had ever been allowed to believe. I wasn't just Mara the overlooked daughter anymore, I was Mara the hotel owner, confident, independent, and ready for whatever came next. Months passed, and life at the hotel kept me busy. I was learning more every day, and the business was growing steadily. I finally felt like I was moving forward, building a life I could be proud of. Then, slowly, news about my siblings started reaching me. Dorian's small business, which he had boasted about endlessly, began failing. Customers stopped coming, debts piled up, and he called relatives asking for loans. Callista's marriage started to crumble, her husband left, and suddenly the comfortable life she had flaunted was gone. Wyatt, who had always relied on his job to live without thinking much about the future, got laid off. Their problems didn't happen all at once, but one by one, each sibling found themselves struggling. Almost immediately, they tried to reach me. Dorian sent messages that sounded like he just wanted advice. Callista tried to appear worried about me and my life, and Wyatt called as if he had suddenly remembered he had a sister. Their tone was strange, polite in a way I had never heard from them before. They acted as if they cared about me, as if I was someone to lean on. I listened, but I stayed careful. I replied to their messages politely, but I didn't open up. I didn't offer them any financial help. I had worked too hard to get where I was to give it away to the people who had spent years mocking me, ignoring me, and laughing at my struggles. Every word I typed was measured. I kept my distance emotionally. They didn't know the truth about me. They had no idea that the small hotel I had been running quietly, learning everything, had become mine. The redwood crest, which they had imagined I cleaned toilets in, was now a property worth millions. Every renovation, every new guest, every day of hard work had built something they would never expect. Their messages and calls kept coming, growing more desperate each time. Dorian asked for advice on managing his failing business, Callista hinted she needed a place to stay, and Wyatt mentioned he might have to move because of lost income. I answered politely, gave neutral responses, but I never offered help. I stayed calm, collected, and in control. It felt strange to watch them struggle while I was quietly thriving. I didn't feel joy in their misfortune. I felt a sense of quiet satisfaction that I had finally built something on my own, something they couldn't touch. I had learned to survive on my own, and now, I was thriving while they were struggling. For the first time in years, I felt in control of my life. I could focus on the hotel, on my work, and on building my future without anyone mocking me or dragging me down. They thought I was still the same struggling sister, but the truth was completely different. I had risen above their cruelty, and they had no idea what I had become. A few months later, I heard my siblings were planning another birthday dinner for our mother. This time, they had to be careful with money. Dorian's business was failing, Callista's marriage was in trouble, and Wyatt was still out of work. They decided to book a cheap hotel to hold the celebration. They didn't know it, but the hotel they chose was the Redwood Crest, the very place I now owned and had renovated from top to bottom. The morning of the party, I arrived early to check on things. The lobby looked beautiful, the flowers fresh, and the rooms ready for guests. I watched quietly as my family arrived, laughing and chatting, clearly unaware of where they were. They walked in complaining almost immediately. "These prices are ridiculous," Dorian said loudly. "Can't they lower them just this once?" Callista added, "I've seen cheaper hotels. This is too expensive for what it is." Wyatt, trying to sound supportive, nodded. "We'll see if they can help us out. Maybe the staff will bend a little for family." I stayed back, letting them fume and argue with the staff. I wanted to see how this would unfold. A few minutes later, Emerson Locke, the hotel manager, came out to settle the issue. He was calm, polite, and confident. He looked at my family, then turned to me with a small smile. "Owner's orders," he said clearly. "Everything is covered." The words hit like a thunderclap. My siblings froze mid-complaint, staring at me in complete shock. "Owner?" Dorian finally whispered, his face pale. Callista's mouth dropped open, and Wyatt's eyes widened. They looked around as if trying to make sure they had heard correctly. I stepped forward slowly, letting the moment sink in. My posture was calm, controlled, but every step carried the confidence I had earned over months of hard work. My family's expressions changed from smugness to disbelief, then to panic. The laughter, the mockery, the assumptions, they all vanished instantly. For the first time, they were speechless, powerless, and forced to face me as someone they had never expected. I watched them scramble quietly, glancing at each other, realizing they had been completely wrong about me all along. That moment was perfect. I didn't need to yell, I didn't need to argue. The truth spoke louder than any words could. I had worked hard, I had succeeded, and they had no choice but to see me as the woman I had become. It was the exact moment everything changed. The Redwood Crest wasn't just a hotel anymore, it was my victory, and my family had just walked right into it. After the initial shock in the lobby, I led my family to a private lounge. The room was quiet and elegant, far from the noisy complaints they had started with. I could see the tension in their faces. They hadn't expected this. They had come in thinking they could pressure the staff, but now everything was different. I looked at them carefully, letting them feel the weight of the moment. "Do you remember the last birthday dinner?" I asked softly. They glanced at each other nervously, avoiding my eyes. I continued, reminding them of every humiliation they had caused me over the years. I spoke about Dorian mocking my rent, Callista whispering cruel things to relatives, Wyatt joining in with jokes, and even my mother's silence that night. Each detail brought back the sting of betrayal, and I made sure they understood how deeply it had hurt me. They tried to interrupt, stammering apologies, but I held up my hand. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just spoke clearly, with calm strength that they had never seen from me. Their smugness, their confidence in mocking me, it all vanished. I could see panic growing in their eyes as they realized this was no longer the timid sister they thought I was. Then Dorian, desperate, spoke up. "Mara, please. We're in trouble. Can you help us? Just a little?" Callista added, "We didn't know things would get this bad. Maybe you could loan us some money?" Wyatt joined, voice shaking, "We don't have anywhere else to turn." I listened quietly, letting them finish. My heart didn't pound with anger. I felt a quiet sense of power I had never known. I knew I could help them, but I also knew I had spent years being the family scapegoat, the one laughed at, ignored, and used. "Not this time. I will not rescue you," I said firmly, my voice steady. "I am done being your scapegoat. I am done being the person you treat as less than you. I built this hotel with my own effort. I earned it. Everything I have now is because of my work, my perseverance, and my determination." Their faces fell, and I continued. "The hotel will treat you like any other guests. You are welcome to stay, but there will be no special favors. You will follow the rules, pay what is required, and treat this place with respect, just like everyone else." They stared at me in disbelief, mouths open, unsure how to respond. I didn't need to shout or make threats. My calm, firm words carried all the strength and authority they had never expected from me. I could see it, their realization that the sister they had mocked and humiliated was now someone they had to respect. I turned slightly, letting them absorb the moment. Their pleas had no power here. I had reclaimed myself, my confidence, and my dignity. And for the first time in years, I felt completely free from the weight of their cruelty. After I spoke to them in the private lounge, I left my siblings sitting there in stunned silence. They didn't know what to say or how to react. The shock on their faces was clear. They had expected fear, tears, or excuses from me, but they got strength and calm instead. I could see the tension in their shoulders, the panic in their eyes, and the shame that began to settle in. I walked slowly back to the lobby, letting them watch me. From a distance, I saw Dorian, Callista, and Wyatt start to argue quietly. They blamed each other, pointed fingers, and whispered angrily under their breath. Every complaint, every excuse, every attempt to regain control failed. They had no idea how far I had come, how much I had accomplished, or how strong I had become. I felt a small, quiet satisfaction, not out of cruelty, but because for the first time I was no longer the powerless one. The evening air outside felt cool and refreshing as I stepped out of the hotel. I took a deep breath, letting it fill my lungs and clear my mind. For the first time in years, I felt free. Free from their judgment, free from their mockery, free from the burden of being treated like I didn't matter. I had earned everything in my life through my own effort, my own decisions, and my own perseverance. No one else had built this for me, and that made the moment even sweeter. I walked slowly back inside, returning to my office. The space felt like mine in every sense, my work, my choices, my rules. I sat at my desk, looking around at the hotel I had restored, the staff I had trained, and the business I had grown from nothing. I thought about the years of struggle, the times I had been doubted, the humiliation I had endured. And yet here I was, completely independent, respected, and capable. I had taken all that pain and turned it into strength. I realized then that I didn't need their approval or their validation. I didn't need their love or recognition to feel whole. What mattered was my own peace, my own success, and my own self-respect. I had chosen independence over dependence, strength over fear, and dignity over bitterness. As I looked out of my office window at the hotel glowing in the evening light, I felt proud of myself. I had built a life on my own terms. I had turned humiliation into empowerment, struggle into achievement, and betrayal into motivation. My future was mine to shape, and I knew I would continue to grow, succeed, and thrive, without anyone else's permission or interference. In that moment, I understood the true meaning of freedom. It wasn't about revenge or proving them wrong, it was about rising above, standing tall, and living the life I had earned. And for the first time, I felt completely, beautifully, unstoppable.